Venezuelans commemorate National Dignity Day this February 4th on the 44th anniversary of a civil military rebellion led by Commander Hugo Chavez that later became the Bolivarian Revolution. From the 4F Mountain Barracks in Caracas, where the remains of Commander Hugo Chavez Frias rest, authorities paid homage to the civil military rebellion that awoke national awareness 34 years ago. The event was attended by the Minister of the Interior, Justice and Peace, Diosdado Cabello, who recalled the teachings of Commander Chavez on how to turn apparent defeats into triumphs. 34 years after that milestone, the cry for freedom remains alive, calling on new generations to defend sovereignty and build a nation based on Bolivarian knowledge and ethics.
This is the January 23rd neighborhood, where the mountain barracks are located, and where National Dignity Day was born. That moment in Venezuelan history when Hugo Chavez led a civil military rebellion to overthrow the then president Carlos Andrés Pérez.
For example, the Venezuelan people were a surprise, but a surprise that was in some way foreseeable. Why? Because the government of Carlos Andrés Pérez was already going through a huge crisis at that time. There were daily protests, and the government turned a blind eye, turning a deaf ear to the terrible economic situation of corruption and instability.
The mismanagement of the oil boom of the 1970s and 1980s under the presidency of Carlos Andrés Pérez forced him to take unpopular measures, such as increasing the price of fuel, urban transportation, and interest rates, while calling for the understanding of the Venezuelan people.
If I chose the easy way out by trying to avoid the difficulties and hide the reality, all Venezuelans would respond with positive understanding. If we come together, as I am doing now, to build a country capable of standing on its own 2 feet.
But the response was not what was expected. The population responded with protests and looting of stores in search of food. The government responded by deploying the army. Faced with this social discontent, the people saw in the figure of a young Hugo Chavez a beacon of hope.
And it served to foster a hope that was not necessarily visible at that moment in terms of the elections, but rather a hope that there were sectors very concerned about what was happening and that in some ways wanted a radical change that was necessary at that time in the country, a radical change that came to pass after the 1998 elections with the triumph of Commander Hugo Chavez Frias.
The military mobilization arrived at the Miraflores Palace at that moment, but it did not have the desired result, as Hugo Chavez himself acknowledged.
Lamentablemente, por ahora, los objetivos que nos planteamos.
Unfortunately for now, the objectives we set for ourselves were not achieved in the capital city.
He was imprisoned for 2 years. Upon his release, he participated in the 1999 elections, which he won by a large margin. As president, he called for the prevention of a new armed incursion, but with the following warning.
No queremos más rebeliones.
We don't want any more rebellions. I told my brothers in arms. I went to the alma mater and said that it must never happen again. But let there never be another February 27th. Let the people never again be deprived of the right to life. Because if this continues to happen, no one can guarantee that another day, tomorrow or the day after, another unwanted event will occur, like the events of 1989 or 1992.
The so-called Caracasos were a response to the measures that at the time suffocated the population. And that is how now these streets of the January 23rd neighborhood capture all the meaning derived from the mobilization of the civil-military union known as National Dignity Day.
The Venezuelan people mobilized on January 4th in the aftermath of the U.S. attack on Caracas and the kidnapping of President Nicolás Maduro and first combatant Cilia Flores. The people expressed their rejection to the imperial action taken to the streets of cities across the nation and demanding the return of the Bolivarian couple. Our correspondent Paula Dragni brings us more details with the second chapter of the series, The Signal of Victory.